Welcome to this YouTube channel, Bhagwan Ki Baatein, where in the ongoing series, we are trying to bring to you stories of great saints. In the last story, we narrated some of the episodes or some of the happenings from the life of great Sant Namdev. We bring to you now some episodes and stories and happenings from the life of Sant Kabir. Who doesn't know him? And in the story related to Sant Namdev, which you just heard in the previous capsules, you must have heard that a shell came floating down the river Bhim, and from it Gunai received the Bhakt Nama. The shell fell into Bhagirathi river and was floating down exceedingly fast. This very obstinate avatar of Shuk was not born in the natural way, and floating down the river Ganges, landed at the Manikarnika Ghat of Benares. Becoming one with the human attributes through this unnatural form of birth, he continued repeating the names of God with his lips. From the shell, a sound was continually coming out. It was Ram Ram. Just then Kamal, the Mohammedan weaver, came down to wash his thread. As he looked down, he happened to see the shell. He waded in the water, opened the shell and looked in. There his eyes beheld a babe, and his heart was full of joy. It was as if a man, without making any efforts, found a hidden store of wealth, or as if one hunting for a pool of water should suddenly see the ocean of milk, or as if when the stringing glass beads one should find them to be pearls, or as when picking up the shells one should find there a jewel, or as when hunting for the city of Yam, the god of death, one should find the city of Vishnu, or as when hunting for a hut habitable to live in, one should find himself entering a golden palace, or as when seeking to hear some obscene music, one should hear a service of praise of God, or as when one might go to watch a quarrel, it should turn out to be a song from Samved, or as when spending one's energy on the Shindi palm, the wine-yielding tree, he should come across a wish tree in his compound, or as when bringing to associate with a thief or immoral person, suddenly one's religious teacher should come to visit him. So while merely carrying on his daily business, Kamal found this baby in the Ganges river. This child was the avatar of Sri Shuk in this Kali Yuga, the universal savior, a world guru. He wrapped the baby up in his garment and hastened to his home. With heart overflowing with joy, he said to his wife, "I have found a baby in the Ganges of perfect beauty, endowed with 32 qualities. My dear wife, take care of it." Hearing this, his wife's breasts swelled with milk. She nursed the child and her joy overflowed. A great Vaishnav was born in a Mohammedan family. Therefore the name of Kabir was given to him. His father and mother loved him intensely. Even while a baby, it repeated God's name, and listening to it, everyone was astonished. They said, "We wonder what good deeds this orthodox Mohammedan named Kamal performed in his former birth. How is it that this Vishnu Bhakt, already distinguished by his religious characteristics, should be born to this Mohammedan?" One replied, "It was because fate was favorable to him. If fate is favorable to anyone, why does one need the power of knowledge? Mad men born in a low caste are often praised by all men through the power of fate. So this man's good fortune is extraordinary. A Bhakt of Vishnu has come to birth through him." Such was the talk amongst all the people of that sacred city. Well, because he had done some good deeds in his life of former births. Kabir was born to him. Day by day, he grew in stature, and his parents had him married. The mother and father taught Kabir how to carry on his avocation, but he would not take it to his heart. He would give no attention to a business life. He could not distinguish what belonged to him and what belonged to others. He did not know what was joy and what was sorrow. He paid the same respect to a Brahmin, a prince, or a pauper. If he saw a heap of money fall before him, he had no desire to pick it up. If a thief came to rob him of his money, he did nothing to protect himself. Because Kabir worshipped in this way, his business declined. The evildoers and the evil-minded laughed as they saw Kabir's conduct. If a banana tree and a boar tree are planted in the same place, it will not be happy for either. How can fire and water dwell together in friendship? How can a prostitute and a dutiful wife, a miser and a generous giver, a reviler and a man of intelligence live together in one piece and in one place? There will be enmity between the one and the other. How can a fly and a dainty food get on well together? A goat herd and a pandit cannot live together in friendship. How can the demon Rahu and the moon, a moth and a flame, the sea and Rishi Agastya dwell in love? While the story of Sri Krishna was being read, Shishupal was unwilling to listen. And Ravan heard of the might of Shri Ram, he did not feel happy. As there is a perpetual enmity between poison and nectar, so there is always a mental opposition between worldly riches and the supreme spiritual riches. Well, enough of this long digression. Let's see what happens. Kabir continues his worship of God. While his business prosperity grew less, the evil-minded, as said earlier, laughed at him. You've taken God to your heart, and so has come about this condition of self-neglect. It does not appear how you will continue to carry on your domestic affairs. Having that day rubbed paste on his threads, Kabir was made to sit at the loom, but he was not able to think of himself. He was entirely lost in the worship of Ram. Bringing the image of Ram to his imagination, he closed both his eyes. His full attention was given to the form and name of God. He no longer remembered his own bodily condition. His mother came to him and tried to awaken him. She said, Kabir, I do not know what has happened to you now. Believing that his mother would whip him, he came to self-consciousness, and being now awake, he wove a hand-breadth cloth. Just then he again became unconscious, and the image of Sri Ram appeared in his heart. Seeing this to be the case, Lord of Ayodhya himself sat down to weave. Ram said to himself, he has lost himself in contemplating me. His mother will give him a beating. So thinking, the holder of the bow, Ram sat down to weave the shela, the gold scarf. He who finds his pleasure in the ocean of milk, Lord of the universe, dweller in the heaven, Vaikunt, he sat down at Kabir's loom in order to weave. Yogis sit on the spiked beds, and yet he does not quickly come into their imagination. But seeing Kabir's bhakti, he sat down to weave the scarf. He who cannot be attained by the study of Vedas and Shastras, by wandering from sacred places to sacred places, he, the dweller at Dwarika, ornament of his bhakt, sat down to weave the scarf. He whom Sanak and the other Munis bring continually into their contemplation, even he, Hari, sat down to Kabir's loom and wove the scarf. He whom the daughter of ocean serves, holding his feet to her heart, he who is dear ornament of Shiva, even he sat down to weave the scarf. Now awaking, however, Kabir regained his consciousness, and after a moment's thought, he hastened to bring to weave. But he was no more than the awakened when the husband of Janki came into his imagination. Kabir's mind attained its calmness and beheld that it was Krishna who sat weaving. Whenever Kabir lost self-consciousness, then Krishna began to weave. When the self-consciousness began to return, Krishna would stand at the distance amused. Thus Kabir and Krishna both together wove the garment, just as when the water of the Saraswati joins the water of Ganges, the two are no longer different. So God and his Bhakt together wove the garment. Kabir folded it up, came into the house and gave it to his mother. The mother now said to Kabir, "Go now into the market and quickly sell the scarf and come back bringing me the money." Saying, "I will do so," Kabir started from his home, taking the scarf in his hand, and sat down in the bazaar. He closed his eyes, brought to his mind the form of Shri Ram. He lost self-consciousness and continued singing the praise of Ram on his lips. He forgot entirely that he had come to sell the scarf. Holding God in his heart, he continued repeating the names of Ram in his love for him. Merchants came into the bazaar and Kabir sat down beside them, but no customers appeared for the purpose of buying the shilla, the scarf. Because the hand of God Supreme, the Lord of the heaven, Vaikunt, had touched it. It seemed would-be purchasers, as they looked at it from a distance, as being too costly for them. If buyers wished to purchase a garment within 5 rupees, it seemed to them that it was twice that value. If they thought they would buy it for 10 rupees, it appeared to them as if it were worth 20 rupees. Those who would purchase it for 25 rupees seemed to see it worth more than 50. Those people who were in search of one worth 50 rupees saw it worth double that amount. Purchasers who wished to spend 500 or 1,000 rupees seemed to see it worth more than 1,000, because it seemed of such high value. People merely glanced at it from a distance. They said to themselves, "Even if we ask him the price, we have no money with which to purchase it." Some wealthy merchants passed by. It seemed to them to be worth more than 100,000 rupees. Looking at one another, customers passed into the bazaar, saying to one another, "This Bhakt Kabir weaves very costly garments. As we have no money, our coming to the bazaar is useless." Thus saying, men and women hastened back to their homes. The value of the scarf seemed to be exceeding the financial ability of the customers. So no customer came to ask Kabir his price. The garment that seemed to customers of value at which they were willing to purchase it, that garment seemed to become double such value. Just as in every living being the soul exists, just so it was in this case. Having planted mustard and onion, sugarcane or any seed, having given it water, its sap gets the same characteristic as the plant. When many musical instruments are being loudly played, space seems to take their very form. So Kabir's cloth seemed of a different nature to every one looking at it. Or one might think of gold as being homogeneous, but the ornaments made from it seem of various kinds. Or just as a flame seems in size according as one piles on the wood, or just as the beholder sees himself as he is in a looking glass held before him by a barber, so Kabir's scarf seemed to the customer. Looking at it from a distance, they said to themselves, "We have not the ability to pay for it, and not having sufficient money with which to purchase it, why needlessly go and ask him the price?" Thus saying to themselves, the customers went forward aimlessly into the bazaar. In the meantime, the Bhakt Kabir, full of love, continued his worship of Shri Ram. As the sun began to set, the bazaar people began to dwindle. Kabir now opened his eyes and looked about him. He said, "All the people have gone to their homes, and the scarf has no customer. If I go back to my home, my mother will give me a whipping." So saying this, Bhakt of Vishnu continued sitting calmly. Just then, he suddenly noticed an empty house. I think we will leave this capsule to this interesting story here itself, so that you are curious to know what happens next. So we will carry on in the next capsule the story and the episodes from life of Kabir Das ji. Until we connect again, goodbye, good luck and Sadar Pranam.